Good evening, TNT family. We are fortunate tonight to have our lion, Dr. Roodal Moonilal, MP for Oropouche East, and he is the Shadow Minister, I believe, for National Security, Dr. Moonilal.
Correct, correct.
So we're going to be addressing national security issues tonight, and most recent development that we saw happening with the TTPS, and also what's taking place with our border security. So, Dr. Munilal, if you can give us a little breakdown of what you saw transpired with the recent incident with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service failure to address some issues with corruption in the police force. It's an ongoing issue that we see with the deterioration of the police force, especially under this government. A long history of things happening, and it's not being dealt with. Officers are allowed to get away with what's taking place. You see evidence destroyed and all these kind of things taking place. So if you can enlighten us what's taking place and from your perspective and how we will deal with as we take government.
Well, good evening to you and good evening to all your listeners and viewers. And it's my great pleasure to join you again uh, with your wide audience across the country, Trinidad and Tobago, and of course the Caribbean and North America. Uh, as I think most of your followers would know, that we are in a desperate time in Trinidad and Tobago, where among the several problems we face, one is clearly the issue of crime, rampant crime, violent crime, gang-related crime, crime against children in particular, at the school and outside. So it's a very, very difficult time. I mean, there's no need to run through statistics, but the statistics speaks volumes of the crisis that we face. A fundamental part of coming out of this kind of crisis across the world is the issue of confidence in law enforcement. Without a, a pillar of confidence in law enforcement, whether it's the police, specific units in police, the defense force, and so on, if there's little or no confidence, that doesn't augur well for detection of crime and prosecution of criminal elements. And across the globe, it is very common, and there's an important connection between confidence in law enforcement and ability to deal with criminal elements across the board. And the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has been suffering with this problem of crisis of confidence. It has been low. In recent time, we had a situation where I believe 7 police officers in one case were before the magistrate court, charged for misconduct in public office and offences relating to extortion of businesses, I believe, in East Trinidad. And the matter has been in the court, and then it was shockingly, alarmingly dismissed. Uh, Not because the matter was heard and the officers were acquitted, not because there was a full trial and the court determined that there was innocence, but because the court had made several deadlines for submission of evidence, submission of information, and the prosecution, which is the police in this case, just failed to produce to the court evidence, and in some cases failed to even show up at the court. And this is an extremely terrifying situation, because when the police themselves fail to show up, which is not uncommon, but when they fail to show up in situations where the police themselves are before the court for dastardly offenses, that rocks the very foundation of confidence. And there has been a public uproar, of course, and there were calls for investigations and so on. And I believe the Police Complaints Authority which under the laws of Trinidad and Tobago can investigate police officers for allegations of misconduct and corruption. They had triggered an investigation within what is called their investigative and legal unit pursuant to their powers, which is really Section 21 of the Police Complaints Authority, which gives wide-ranging responsibility and power to investigate, to procure evidential material, medical reports, exhibits, to take statements, and so on under Section 21. According to the law, the Police Complaints Authority can then recommend that action be taken to the Director of Public Prosecutions, the DPP, or the Commissioner of Police, depending on the nature of the matter and the range of officers involved. But as this was happening, we were now told that the commissioner herself, Mrs. Erla Christopher Haywood, had undertaken to refer certain officers, unnamed officers, I believe three, to what is called a tribunal within the police service to face disciplinary charges. That is a peculiar development because this matter is a matter not only of discipline, but it could also be a matter of criminal wrongdoing. I have called today in my press release that that we would like a specific timeline within which this tribunal would report its findings, because history has shown here that these are matters and the tribunal operations itself can continue for years, and it could lead to what I call a calculated natural death, where issues are swept under the carpet, thrown off the table as you go along. And this, we ought not to be in a situation where this issue is swept under the carpet, because as it is, the police is investigating police, which by itself creates a certain troubling notion of bias and prejudice and apparent bias, of course. So we are calling on the Commissioner of Police to indicate a timeline. Now, just for your listeners to understand what that means, is that for officers below a certain rank of commissioner and deputy commissioner, the commissioner is in charge of disciplinary action through what is called an interdepartmental or departmental mechanism, where an assistant superintendent of police or someone in charge of a station and so on can undertake disciplinary action against any police officer, and that police officer will appear before a tribunal. The tribunal, at that tribunal, the police officer may have representation by way of another police officer. In reality, it could be the association that represents police officers and so on, but not a private lawyer, which is an interesting dimension to that as well. But in the police service, we have had many lawyers still as police officers, and therefore it is not unforeseen that an attorney at law will appear, but not as an attorney at law, but as a police officer. So this matter of the tribunal has arisen, and I've asked that this tribunal must have a timeline within which they must conduct this business. And secondly, the tribunal ought to be held in public, meaning the media, members of the public, and so on should be invited to witness this tribunal in action in what are really grave situations of allegations of misconduct and corruption. And this ought to be in public because this really has to do with the crisis of loss of trust in the police. In a recent survey by the Police Service Commission 2023, they found that 72% of their survey that they took, 72% had little trust in the police. Now, if 72% had little trust in the police before this incident, I mean, I ponder what would be the level of distrust at this time. So that in the circumstances, I believe that such a tribunal ought to be in the public. There must be a timeline within which information could be gathered, witnesses and so on could be procured. The persons who are accused can properly defend themselves, because at all times we must respect the constitutional rights of every citizen to natural justice, to a process that is fair, to equality before the law, which are constitutional rights. I've also called today that the Joint Select Committee on National Security should be convened in an emergency session to examine or interrogate the Commissioner of Police and other members of the executive on this sordid matter, in the sense that while the JSC cannot deal with disciplinary action, the Joint Select Committee has a responsibility in terms of policy and legislative intervention. And we ought to examine the Commissioner of Police to discuss the policy implications of this matter, how it happened in the first place, and how we can better structure the processes of the Ministry of National Security and the police to ensure that a matter like this never rear its ugly head again. And therefore, I am calling on an emergency session of the Joint Select Committee on National Security.
Dr. Moonilal, we have seen far too much incidents where it was very damaging for the reputation of the TTPS with the involvement of officers, breaking the trust of the citizenry uh, in their handling of incidents, their direct involvement. I myself have recently had people reach out to me here in the US about officers involved with criminal gangs. Nothing is being done. They could not. Reached out to the commissioner of police, no response. So there seems to be a long, drawn out history of poor supervision and management of the police service. You know,
This is correct. I mean, over the years, we have had several uh, civil matters, I must say, civil matters in the court, constitutional matters which are civil, where the court has ruled that police officers, and in one or two cases, very senior police officers, abuse their power and abuse their office by what is called malicious prosecution of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. It has been far too common now to have cases of malicious prosecution in the civil court where the police has lost and no one ever hears about the ramifications, the implications of that. In fact, a police officer who lost a famous case from a malicious prosecution went on to be promoted. So that what is required here, and this is why the Joint Select Committee should be energized in this matter, we need to look at new legislation as it relates to malicious prosecution and whether or not we should strengthen those laws to ensure that police officers and others, but police officers, it could be customs officers in some cases and whatever, bear the full responsibility for incidents of malicious prosecution, where the court rules that their behavior was, uh, so low, so below an acceptable standard that it is gross malice, and therefore they must personally face the consequences of that. I think that is something that we must look at because the police has been abused in this country by the PNM for decades. And I've raised this matter where police officers have been used as tools, as puppets of the government to do their dirty work. And I again
the,
warn police officers that an incoming UNC administration will look at this matter to ensure that police officers who have been involved in this type of abuse of office face the full brunt of the law. And in some cases, we can look to take away their gratuity, to take away benefits and so on, to pay compensation where we believe that they have acted in a malicious manner.
there has to be some kind of a repercussion for this because you see, under this Cosa Nostra PNM system, there's been a long drawn out history of this kind of conduct, and nothing is being done about it. And I am very concerned about the level of supervision from the commissioners come down, coming downwards, and how we supervise and manage the officers in there,
Well,
and that's something has to be done about that.
this is not a surprise to me, and I'll tell you why. Once the PNM is there, you will find in the police service and elsewhere, they will put square pegs in wrong holes and wrong pegs in square holes. So you will have a situation where the people at the top are so incompetent, are so biased in some cases, are so weak that you will have
Politically
this
biased
level,
too. Yeah, yeah.
you will have this level of mismanagement, this level of corruption. It is very common for PNM administration. Again, I cast no aspersions on anyone, but a senior police officer who has been named in a judgment for the kidnapping of a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, whose role in that process is still to be yet to be
To
revealed,
be
is still to be
verified, yeah. Who
unraveled.
gave the order and stuff like that.
Yes, a senior police officer actually got promoted. Actually got promoted. So this is very common for the PNM, and we have here a long history of malicious prosecution. Apart from the cultural issue, I mean, there's a cultural issue clearly that the police in the country, given the descendant of the British constabulary and so on, believe policemen and women now believe that they have some almighty role, and
Authority.
they can
Yeah,
they
yeah.
can break the law because they name policeman and policewoman. They can do anything they want. They can. I mean, I would tell you, even personally, I have made complaints about police officers in my personal life, my interaction with police officers and so on. I have made complaints about police officers to the Police Complaint Authority, to the TTPS, and so on. I mean, over the years, and nothing has happened. And police officers believe that, see what the police can do, and the police can do anything because they name police. So they can talk to you how they want, they can treat you how they want, they can abuse you, they can give you a bad charge and just don't go to court and have you going to court, every month for 3 years. And that's how they operate. And that has to stop. We need to stop that. And the day a police officer knows that their gratuity, their benefits, and so on will be taken away from them, and they will be denied benefits. They will be denied that. They will be fired, rapidly. That day, when that day comes, you will find that there will be a lessening of cries of malicious prosecution.
Yeah, we definitely need something in place, especially as we take government. In the next election, we have to really put some things in place so that we deal with these issues because there are too many people crying out. Um, one second. Okay.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. You're hearing me?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Does your phone change the angle of the screen? But
Yes,
okay,
yes. I'm just
okay.
returning company now. Yes, great. Yeah, I'm with
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's been too many complaints of citizens reaching out. They're reaching out for help. They're crying out for help. People basically, I mean, you deal with it personally, every day, daily basis there, and people reach out to me here crying out. They don't know which way to turn. They're reaching out to me because I'm outside the country. That because
Sure.
they feel that they can't, they don't know who to turn to within the country. And there's been too many incidents of things that we will chat more personally about. But I am
And
looking forward that our government starts to put things in place so that we hit the ground running with dealing
well,
with these issues.
as you know, I mean, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has outlined an extremely comprehensive and detailed anti-crime agenda. In fact, on Monday evening, as you know, we have a very important town meeting in Barataria to deal with this matter of crime, to invite the community to come out and speak on this issue, offer suggestions, recommendations. But we, the opposition, has already tendered several critical resolutions and recommendations. Stand your ground policy, stand your ground law, uh, ensuring that those persons legally entitled to firearm for their protection, their weapons, and so on, are granted the
Right,
opportunity to defend themselves. We have spoken about specific laws to deal with extortion, home invasion. On Friday, MP Barry Padarat piloted a very courageous, tenacious resolution dealing with anti-bullying in the nation's schools and outlined the party's position on new laws for anti-bullying, which is really a form of violence against children in school and sexual violence involved as well. So that we have a very dynamic, a very novel legislative agenda to deal with crime. But apart from that, of course, we have to resource the police and we have to ensure that there are competent people managing all law enforcement sectors. I mean, today we have no Coast Guard boat. We cannot patrol the waters. I heard the Prime Minister talking in Guyana and threatening that we will not, in the Caribbean, we will not be a haven for criminal punks and so on.
Exactly.
While he's saying that his own country don't have a Coast Guard boat, after spending $600 million on boats, non-working, so that we have to ensure that we have in place the human resources to conduct this business, to ensure that maintenance agreements are in place, boats are repaired in a timely manner, we can patrol our waters, we can ensure the ports are safe, to deal with illegal trafficking in weapons, in human beings, and so on. And the government has really collapsed on the issue of crime, and it really. And I want to again remind people that there are some people who are either naive or they are PNM, and they believe that we can solve crime but keep the PNM in power. That will not happen. You cannot deal with crime in Trinidad and Tobago by keeping the PNM in power. They have to go. If you have to address the issue of crime. I mean, if they couldn't do it in 9 years, they will not do it in 9 weeks. What they couldn't do from 2015 to 24, they will not be able to do it in a few months. So they are clueless, they are hopeless, they are hapless. And it is important that we mobilize the national community across the board to remove them and put a competent government in place that has the energy, the political will, the human resource capacity, the management
And the
to
commitment
deal
to
with
doing that.
crime.
Yeah. Yeah. Because crime is a very hot issue, especially for those outside the country, those of us outside the country. A lot of people here are saying to me that they don't want to come home, even they really would like to.
My friend,
And
if you go to New York, Miami, and Toronto and give people free ticket to come to Trinidad, they're not coming.
exactly,
I
exactly.
mean, people will come here because they have to attend a funeral, they have to attend an important family wedding. Otherwise, nobody's coming here because you don't want to come here and then you are robbed. Look, just a couple of days ago in Henry Street, Port of Spain, a woman sergeant, a police officer, a woman sergeant, was just robbed. The person came up behind her, grab her chain, fling her to the ground. I mean, this is Trinidad and Tobago, and that is a woman police officer. So that nobody comes here unless there's a funeral or a wedding or something like that. Nobody will come here. So and increasingly, I want to warn the population too that our human resources will leave us. The precious human resource we have, human capital, will depart, will migrate if we do not get a hand on this matter of crime and criminality.
I don't know. Maybe there's an agenda behind that to frustrate us to leave the country.
Maybe that's the agenda, that they can get all the high human capital people out, chase them away, and you keep the PNM supporters here. But as again, they treat their own supporters in a most vile manner, in a manner that is dehumanizing and disempowering and so on. So that is probably part of the overall agenda. But as I said before, businessmen and businesswomen are bawling today in this country. They are bawling in response to the rampant crime wave, the hopelessness they feel. And now these matters where the police themselves are implicated in matters that suggest, something dastardly within the service itself. So coming back to
Kidnapping,
the point we started
utilizing
with,
a
it's
police car.
important that we clean up the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
That I think that has to be a high priority.
A number one priority of an incoming UNC administration is to address this matter of public confidence in the police service and to move swiftly to clean up the police service to ensure that we weed out the few, dirty cops. We remove quickly the rotten apples that can spoil the entire tray of apples. This is our approach.
Uh,
And
uh,
there has to be some SOPs and supervision, and how they manage.
Well, everything we must do, of course, within the
Yeah,
law. So there must be
yeah,
legal parameters for dealing
right.
with this matter. But
It
I'm
has to be
confident.
upgraded.
I'm confident that we will have the superior ministerial, capacity. We will have the clear legal advice, and we will work quickly to ensure that we bring back trust and confidence in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and other areas of law enforcement. As you know, they have also destroyed the intelligence community when they undermined the Strategic Services Agency in March 2024 removed the director and other staff under the guise of an attempted coup and a church want to take over the country and other foolishness, which to this day they cannot prove. They cannot charge anyone since March to today. They never charge anyone with trying to overthrow the country. They have not, in fact, they have not even produced a final report on those outrageous and monstrous statements made by the Prime Minister. There is no final report so many months later. And that by itself speaks to another issue which I raised quite recently in the Parliament.
Well,
Yeah.
it's rather embarrassing to see Dr. Rowley's statement to CARICOM, knowing that the fact that he cannot secure his own constituency, he cannot
He
secure
can,
his own country.
my friend, that fella cannot secure your house. He cannot secure a parlor. He cannot secure an outhouse. And he's in Guyana threatening and warning criminals and so on. While he was doing that, I think they broke into the member of parliament for Port au Prince, out minister in the ministry, national security. They broke into his office and stole air conditioned units and other things.
Yeah. So, Trini, you have any questions for Dr. Moonilal?
Yeah, Dr. Moonilal, good night and
Good
um
evening. Good evening.
good evening. You mentioned SSA. I was trying to come in earlier to talk about the SSA. We had
Sure.
the destruction of the SSA with all the allegations about your church and what have you. But what do we have in place right now? Because the SSA was supposed to be controlling um the prison, the equipment, that equipment to prevent phone calls and so on from prisons, and we have them, Dr.
Well,
Raul,
we're at this
others
moment
talking about shots being called from prison, and we see
uh,
videos every
we
day
had
live from prison.
we had invested in what is called grabbers and jammers, a system to prevent prisoners using electronic devices, particularly smartphones and so on, to communicate. I believe that entire program has collapsed.
Collapse,
The, inte-
correct,
the intelligence community has been dismantled. The PNM has placed a couple of their own loyal supporters in charge with extraordinary powers and over possession of extremely state of the art technology. We believe that they are using that to spy on political opposition and persons in opposition to them in the national community. So that equipment is being used to spy, to create propaganda, but not to monitor criminal elements and not to ensure that intelligence links to crime fighting so that we can get the arrest, the charge, and the conviction of persons responsible for violence.
We
we
saw that happen under Manning also.
Yes, in fact, that was a major issue I 2009, 2010, and so on. When we got into office, we actually found the files where they were spying on the Chief Justice, religious leaders, opposition members, trade union leaders, and so on. We believe the same thing is happening today. We have information that persons were fired because they did not want to take directives from PNM ministers to to intercept calls from former UNC ministers of government, for example. We have that information, and that is the basis for firing persons and so on. So when you do this, you collapse and you destroy important agencies that are needed in the fight against the criminal elements.
well, that is probably why criminals are always emboldened under the
Of course, I mean, a criminal in this country will give you a thumbs up when they are reminded that Fitzgerald Hines is the Minister of National Security.
Now, coming back to the security of our borders, I'd like you to elaborate because the population doesn't seem to believe. They seem to think that the UNC and the PP government left the borders. They keep talking about the OPVs and the border was left
Well,
open.
I
PNM
would
had
tell
to
you
come in.
this PNM government could not maintain six smaller vessels, what's called the Dayman vessels, which we purchased. They could
Correct.
not maintain two larger vessels. God alone knows what would have happened to that OPV. If they had the OPV, you would have had chicken and duck hatching egg on it, Karaili vine growing on that boat, because they could not maintain smaller vessels. And when you do the inquiry, as we have done in the Joint Select Committee on National Security, they did not have fuel. They did not have trained manpower. They did not renew service agreements for maintenance. So that when we left them with six smaller boats, two larger boats. I think in all, a total about 12 patrol vessels of different sizes. Today they have non-functional or operational. And that is the difference because all you need, I mean, let's face it, this is a small island and you are dealing really with two or three hotspots in terms of the marine coastline.
And
The Port of Spain
very short range.
northeast and the southwestern area. I believe you are dealing with that. Now, what has happened here is that they have not maintained, they have not provided equipment, they have not provided service and maintenance, and they have allowed all that capacity and equipment to run down. So that now we are hearing every month vessels have to be towed to Suriname, in some cases the Dominican Republic, to fix and repair. They come back here, something happened, they go back. This really is mismanagement. And when we were there, I can tell you that under the People's Partnership Administration, at any time we had 10 to 12 vehicles in service, vessels in service, a full fleet at some time patrolling our waters. And this is why we were able to keep crime down. I believe serious crime was down for the lowest in about 36 years. That was why, because we had the human resources and the material resources which we worked with. And when we return to office, we will move swiftly to ensure that the resources available are utilized. We have trained manpower available. We have fuel and other important inputs into that process. And we have everything in place so that we can patrol our waters. We will work with our international partners, not only in the region, but in North America as well, the United States and others. We will work with our partners to assist in the patrolling of our waters, and we will create a security blanket around Trinidad and Tobago to ensure that we minimize the trafficking of illegal weapons, human trafficking, and other crimes on the high sea.
Right. The other I wanted you to elaborate on so that the population will be aware is the when the PP government left government, there were scanners at all the ports and there were mobile scanners. Please
Of course, we left the government with scanners at the ports, but do you know, under our regime, we had purchased additional scanners to be used by the port, by customs, and so on. And all the scanners, again, whether coincidental, accidental, or incidental, they were allowed to get in a state of disrepair, and it take years. This is a government that could buy a boat overnight from Australia, but they took about 4 years, 5 years, and they cannot fix a scanner on the port of Spain. I visited myself personally with the Joint Select Committee on National Security, and a scanner there broke down for 4 years. You know why? A forklift reversed
Oh,
into the scanner and damaged it.
yeah, I
And,
remember.
and in 4 years, they could not find the part. Nowhere in the world you could find the part in 4 years to fix that scanner. This is a country where in 6 weeks you could order a motor car, and in 6 weeks you get the car from Japan. But they couldn't get in 4 years a part for a scanner to fix the port of Port of Spain. Now, and that to me speaks volumes.
Yeah, but there were also two mobile scanners, correct?
I
That
believe under Commissioner Gary Griffith, there were two mobile scanners. I saw it myself again. They were they were scanners that could have been disguised in a sweet drink truck, as a sweet drink truck,
correct,
as a
correct,
hardware what you call a truck carrying hardware material and so on. And would you believe they had this technology to just stand at the side of the road and every vehicle pass, scan it for weapons, for
oh,
human beings if they're in
that's
a
correct.
trunk or if they're in a panel van or something. You could scan. And would you believe the government of Trinidad and Tobago, the police, said they didn't use it because it was not useful? First, they said they didn't have the human beings to operate it. When they came back again, they said, well, we thought those things not useful. And that is being used by the Mexican authorities, the United States authorities, and several governments throughout Europe and South America today to deal with border protection. But
Correct.
Trinidad and Tobago government said they couldn't use it. They couldn't use it. That is why they couldn't use the Cuba Hospital and the Debe campus.
Correct. Correct.
Well,
You know,
guys,
those
thank you.
small,
I
yeah,
know we
yeah.
had a time in mind, but we have long gone past the time, as you know.
Right. So I want to thank you for taking the time for joining us, and Dr. Moonilal. Anytime you're available to come and brief us, you let us know, and we'll arrange that for you to,
Well, thank
to.
you very much. Thank you very much. It's my great pleasure, guys. Keep up the good work. I want to tell you that my heart goes out to you. It's a great job you all are doing for the people of Trinidad and Tobago and elsewhere as well. Keep up the fight. Keep up the exposure, the disclosure, the speech. The free speech is what you promote. I've taken note and I listen at times to several of my colleagues in Parliament and outside who appear on your program and give excellent interviews, very enlightening and revealing interviews with you. And keep up the great work. And God is great. By the will of God, we will bring change to Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
and
much,
God
Dr.
bless you.
Moonilal, and we look forward to having you back again and even working with your government when it takes place.
Thank you and have a wonderful evening. And to Trinidad and Tobago, please have a wonderful weekend, but also importantly, a safe weekend. Thank you and God bless.
So I want to thank our listening audience for joining us tonight, and we will continue the education and information on this channel. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.